I worked in the policy sector and in the academic sector, and those sectors have different goals and different ways of working and very different ways of communicating. Academic research is not very accessible even for policymakers, and so one of the main functions of my work is really to take the very excellent work that is being done that may be inaccessible or may just be underanalyzed. So for example, we have lots of data that comes through our statistical agency, but it's not necessarily being analyzed with a view to promoting gender equality, and to make that research accessible to policymakers so that they can make the decisions they need to make. But the thing to remember about policymakers is they are not experts. They have to deal with every issue, right? They have bills coming across their desks on everything from, water, sanitation, to infrastructure, to violence against women. And so what they are really looking for are very concise, short, brief, well-informed policy recommendations. Why is this a problem? What can we do about it? How much is it going to cost? And so a lot of what I do when I'm working with policymakers is trying to answer those questions for them. One of the things that happens sometimes in your research is what you find surprises you. And if it surprises me, and I spend all of my time researching economic policy and gender inequality, then it's probably going to surprise most policymakers, most parliamentarians. And so it's been very important in my work to be able to bring that message to policymakers, to parliamentary committee members, particularly when what seems to be true is the opposite of what we think is true. So for example, what I have found is that the male breadwinner model, that is when dad makes a reasonable salary, its mom stays home with the kids, is not what's actually happening. The way we think people are behaving and the way they're actually behaving is different. So in fact, the vast majority of women and men with children under the age of 4 are working parents. And what that means for policymakers, for example, is that they need to think very seriously about childcare, because it is just the fact that over 70% of women are in the workforce with children under 4. So those children are going somewhere. And we also know from research on the availability of childcare spaces that we don't have anything like enough licensed childcare spaces to take safe and adequate care of those kids. So if you can bring to a committee something like that, you really are able to use research to show them that the kind of common sense notion of, if we just pay men enough and if we have job policies that increase the number of jobs for men that are well-paying jobs, then we don't need to invest in childcare because women are staying home with the kids. Well, that's not what they're actually doing. And that's really the role of research, is to say, I know that's the way we think people are behaving, but we actually have data that shows that's not how they're behaving. And so we need to make policy that responds to how people are actually behaving.